What sold me on this movie is that it's a horror movie, but in the killer's perspective. Sounds interesting, right? Well, does it stand up to it? Let's review it. This movie does a really good job at keeping it in the killer's perspective most of the time, and I really like some of the ideas they have in here from the way to keep it in the killer's perspective. Some of it's the cinematography and like how they're able to film the movie. I like the camera angles because they're basically following the killer around the whole movie, almost the entire movie, but the camera is basically following him around, and we see from the trailer that it's basically in the same position throughout the entire thing. That's the movie, right there, mostly. The shots change, but they're mostly the same shots throughout it, and I found that interesting enough. And I find this movie has such a creative approach on how it does certain stuff as well. Like, again, the camera movement, that was a good part I did like about it, because it's just different and new. But there's also some creative kills in here that are different and over the top as well. And speaking of the kills, yeah, the kills are in here. Not as much as you are gonna hope for, which I will dive into. But they're in here, and I feel like they're able to do it in a good way. Like I said, in a creative way, they were able to do it too. But the kills in here are over the top, exactly what you want from a horror movie, over the top gore. That's the kills in this movie. And just the main story with the killer, because the killer himself has a story. It's not him just walking around killing people. They add a certain essence to it, that he has a story there. Now, if the movie wasn't in the killer's perspective, and just followed the normal human characters, we will know this story anyways. But just the story centered around the killer on why he's killing people, I found it interesting enough. But my main problem with this movie is that nothing happens. Like I said, the camera basically stays the same throughout the movie. And that's the main problem with the movie. It's like nothing happens. It's just the killer walking the entire movie. Almost nothing happens throughout the entire thing. Like, we take the first 40 minutes, I think, about 40 minutes, introducing everything. Meaning that, like, the first 5 minutes of the movie is basically like Skinamarink that I saw last year, where the camera shots are just there, not showing anything, but just audio. That's the first 5 minutes of the movie, but then the killer gets out. We don't know the plot yet, you will learn it later. And he gets out and just starts walking. The camera stays the same, as I did say I liked about that. But he just starts walking, you know, there's other stuff that happens too. But almost like the first 40 minutes of the movie is basically just that. The killer walking. Just walking forward. That's all it is in the first 40 minutes. And once the kills do start coming along, it's basically the same problem still. Because there's like little pauses between it where the killer is just still walking. There's also no real story in here. Like I said, I like what they did with the killer. But other than that, there's almost no story in here. I was comparing this to Friday the 13th. That's basically the story. The story in Friday the 13th is the story of this, but in the killer's perspective. And if you're going into this movie just expecting kills, well, the first about 40 minutes of the movie is not really that. So, you're not really getting what you're expecting until the last 40 minutes. And there was like this last 10 minutes of the movie where it was extremely pointless. That was leading to something, but then it just ended. The movie just ended, and it led to nothing. It just felt forced in there, extremely forced. I felt like the beginning half of it was necessary, but then it started dragging on a bit, and then once it cut to the credits, I felt like there was no reason why that scene needed to be in here. And for the other human scenes in here where it's just focusing on them, it's part of the story. That's how you're able to get the knowledge that you need to know to follow along with the story. So I thought that they executed it well for that. But the last 10 minutes of the movie dragged it on too much. And the violent nature is kind of frustrating for me. I do not know if I would recommend this movie or if I wouldn't recommend this movie. And I don't really know the score I would give it either. Because like I said, I like the kills in here, I like the concept, I like the cinematography, but nothing happens in the movie. So it's almost hard for me to know if I would recommend this to you or not. What I will say though is that this movie is different. If you're expecting a different movie entirely and not expecting just a normal horror movie, and you're fine with just walking most of the movie, you'll probably like this. If not, you probably won't like this movie. This explains why the critics like it, but not the audience. This is not your average horror movie, and do not expect that when watching this movie. But if I were to give it a rating out of 10, I will give In a Violent Nature a 5 out of 10. Right in the middle. It's a movie that I would rewatch, but again, has problems with it. But anyways, thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, maybe this one will interest you too. And see you guys next time. Goodbye.